Brother, we've got Major League Baseball to talk about.
Yeah.
It's very exciting stuff. Major League Baseball spring training is underway as of this weekend. Manny Machado is a $350 or $350 million man. $350 would be a very nice bargain.
I would say that's more like you and me.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I would love that.
You post labrum surgery. That's your $350 man. But Manny Machado is officially a $500 million player for the San Diego Padres. When it's all said and done, he's made $150 million. He'll make 350 more. The Padres also hung 18 on the Diamondbacks this weekend. Yeah. I'm starting a new thing, pretty much titled Spring Training Overreactions. And then we've got top 10 first basemen in the game as well. We continue the top 10s. This is what, like, the first loaded show in what feels like forever, but it's really good to talk about baseball that we just watched.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fun because, you know, it's loose, but at the same time, you're still seeing guys compete. It's a nice appetizer to the World Baseball Classic, which is going to disrupt what we're used to. That's going to be high leverage baseball, intense baseball, you know, kind of before we get the Major League season. But what I've noticed a little bit of is some of the guys that are getting ready to head to the WBC are ramping it up a little bit more than they do this early in the spring, maybe in other years, because they got to ramp up for the ramp up, which is like, I got to be ready to go first or third on a single because I'm going to have to do that like full speed in a couple weeks in the World Baseball Classic. Like, no one's dogging it in the World Baseball Classic. It's not happening. If you don't plan on going 100%, you're not playing. That's why we've seen a lot of guys bow out. So it's been cool to kind of see some of these teams put their best lineup forward right away because there's so many teams that'll be quote unquote broken up with the World Baseball Classic, which I know managers hate, but we don't really care.
I don't care at all, and I don't think the players really care that much, although you are seeing guys, if they tweak something, right? Like Pivetta, I think, tweaked a hammy. He's done. Kershaw tweaked something. Yeah. He's done. Alejandro Kirk is still waiting for a kid to pop out, so he's done. Like, very unique situations here. I figured we could spend like the first 45 minutes of the show talking about why the pitch clock sucks, and it's okay to it's okay to like make a foregone conclusion statement on the pitch clock after 2 days of spring training baseball. You in?
Yeah. So I'll highlight one anecdotal example of that was, and who I love and I admire is in the way that he does his job. But I mean, dude, passing, it was brutal. The one tweet where he had the tweet of the video of that 3-2 pitch. That didn't happen, right? With the bases loaded, the run walks in, whatever the call was, or the strikeout. It was a strikeout. And
I think it was,
I don't care because no one pays attention. Even if he had a walk-off grand slam, no one would give a shit except for Cal Conley's family, and that's about it. Yeah. But we pretend that this was a big deal, and Passan goes, "Oh, this is the new reality." And
no,
I was
not.
like, "Come on, what kind of doomsday shit is this? This is not the new reality. This is February 25th. Game 1 of spring training, which these growing pains are going to happen. You're a minor league broadcaster, Jack. How many games that you broadcasted and or watched? I watched a shit ton, and you broadcasted even more probably. How many games ended with a pitch clock violation?
0.
0 up, right?
I hardly saw any in the 9th inning. Like, there's more leeway in the regular season that I think anybody's expecting right now. The only reason you're seeing as many calls as you are, A, is because you're watching these games via Twitter and everybody's clipping them and putting them out on Twitter. Guess how many are happening over the course of a 9-inning game? We're seeing over 200 pitches, probably closer to 300 pitches being thrown in total in these games. 1.7. That's how many times we're seeing a pitch clock violation so far in these spring training games.
Even better. So first week of minor league baseball, according to Baseball America, there was 1.54 violations per game, pitch clock violations. By the second week, it dropped to 1.19. By the third week, it was 0.93. By the fourth week, it was 0.68. And it continued to dwindle as the year went on. That means 32% of games roughly had 0 violations. Like, I know that's rough back of the envelope.
And the majority had
just
1.
Roughly averages out.
Right.
What? Sorry?
And the majority had 1.
1, which was in the third inning with 1 out in a 1-1 count, which sucks at that time. And that's one growing pain. But how about every single game being 2 hours and change? longest one being 3 hours. And these are with a lot of subs, with a lot of guys that are like, reliever here, reliever there, substituting here and there. Like nobody's really uber aggressive as they're all kind of feeling it out. It seems like every count kind of goes deep. Like these are going quick. I'm glad we started with that real quick because the faux outrage is ridiculous. It's not a new reality. And I hated seeing Passan, because he's always so calculated and thoughtful. And I'm like, oh, you tipped your hand on this one. Like,
but
obviously,
he's also a
you're not
doomsdayer. Let's be honest. He's like
he is
totally
a doomsdayer.
sensationalist.
Yeah, and it got a lot of retweets. It got a ton of engagement. So
he knows how to do that.
I get it, and he's really good. But like that was the one thing that I wanted to make clear. I'm like, this is not the new reality. This is February 25th, and just like you shouldn't take every single result, very seriously. I think you should be excited about a big time exit velocity, a young guy putting up a 118 that he had never put up before, like some freakish thing like that, or a pitcher that is, running it up a little bit higher velocity wise than we're used to, or, maybe some starting pitcher is mixing in a cutter that we didn't see previously. Look for those things. But if you're chasing results in spring training, you're just wasting your time. Like that. No, none of these players don't care about results right now. So why should you?
Exactly. And I tell you, these players by the end of spring training are going to love the pitch clock. I heard negative thoughts about the pitch clock from hitters, not pitchers, in the first month of the regular season in minor league ball last year. After that, not a word. There was pretty much a general consensus that this was a good thing. My last point on the pitch clock. Arizona and San Diego, and this will go into the Padre conversation. San Diego won 18-6. There were a combined, if my count is correct, 16 pitchers used, 11 walks issued, 25 total hits, and 24 total runs. That game, an 18-6 game with 16 pitchers used, took 3 hours and 3 minutes. This is the best thing to happen to baseball.
Yeah. And I think people are going to really like it. And last thing I'll say is Codify. They tweeted out, a clip of like just a slow at bat last year between like Christian Vasquez and some reliever. And it's like, man, you actually it reminds you how monotonous it can be. So the guy steps out, adjusts everything. And it was just like, oh my gosh, here we go. Pitch to pitch to pitch. Like I know that more people that watch games very passively may watch more games now. I really do believe that. So I'm looking forward to the results, I think, being very positive.
So Gary Cohen put it best, I think. He said, and I don't think I'm getting this directly, but it's this same line. It doesn't take away baseball time. It lessens non-baseball time in the course of a baseball game. You're getting the same amount of baseball, everybody. You're getting the same number of pitches. You're getting the same number of balls in play, hopefully some more. And you're just getting out of there quicker because you don't have to deal with like the step offs and you don't have to deal with like getting a new baseball every time.
And if you go to baseball games to watch them swap out baseballs or lick their finger for the 50th time and wipe it on their pants or adjust their batting, if that's why you go to games,
take up golf.
I'll tip my cap to you. I mean, that's really awesome. I promise you, you're one of very few. So that said, I think a lot of people are going to be going to San Diego Padres games now for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, you texted me, can we talk Padres? So go ahead and talk Padres and I'll fill in whatever.
Yeah, real quick before we get into the top 10s, I just find their whole situation fascinating because I considered the Machado extension, honestly, unlikely. That's with no sources, nothing like that, of course. That was just based on whatever basic reasoning I can kind of come to, because you look at it from this lens, and I think we talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but you're already paying Tatis. You just paid Xander big money, and you just traded a haul for Juan Soto. And a haul puts it lightly. I mean, we're seeing James Wood ranked as a top 5 prospect in baseball by some, top 20 by everybody. And then you're going to talk about Gore, Abrams, Hassel, and Susana. These are all really, really good players. It's an all-time package. You figure if you trade that for a Juan Soto, you're going to extend him. You're not trading that for 2.25 years of Juan Soto. My question to you is, like, are they actually? So are they now going to pay Juan Soto as well? Or is he going to potentially hit free agency? If he does, I think it's a gross misuse of assets. And I know that's crazy to say because I'll never fault a team for for signing, or excuse me, for trading for a generational hitter like Juan Soto. But in terms of just using your assets properly, factions of that large package could have got you multiple stars. So if this is what you cashed in the entire farm in for, was for 2.25 years of Juan Soto, they better win it in the next 2, or else it looks pretty ridiculous.
So my thought on that is I think Machado and I think Yu Darvish were slightly more inclined to sign their long-term deals with the Padres because they saw the aggressiveness needed to go after Juan Soto. And they know that ownership and they know that AJ Preller will put the Padres in a position year after year where if they're competing for a World Series championship, they will push the chips in to go try and win that World Series. And that's really enticing. And I heard the number floated at 400 million. I think Nightingale floated that number for Machado. That's what he wanted. I think that's kind of a front. Like that's probably a smokescreen number.
That's probably the asking price. They settled on 350.
Yeah, they settled on 350 here. I think Machado is willing to budge from 400 and go to 350, knowing that the Padres do everything in their power to go try and win championships when they have the opportunity to do so. Now, after locking up Machado and Darvish and Musgrove and Tatis, I think that the ship has sailed on extending Soto. I don't think that Juan Soto signs an extension with San Diego. Do you?
I just find it so baffling that you could trade that kind of haul for a couple years of a player.
But they did it for 3 Octobers of Juan Soto.
Well, you burned the first one and he wasn't even that great. I understand. So that's hindsight though. Like 3 Octobers of Juan Soto are worth what they gave up. Like, man.
I mean,
so like
you're the prospect guy, but you're never going to have a prospect block what you're trying to do right now.
That's fine. And you can bank on, I'm not banking on these guys panning out. What I'm banking on is the value of the assets, use of assets, right? We're talking about if you package Gore and Abrams in one deal, you're getting a very impactful.
You get a top 20 player in the game. You just don't get a top 3 player in the game.
So that's my thing. So then you also, at this point, package a James Wood, who they knew was heading into top 15 prospect territory.
Package Wood, Hassel, and Susana, you get another top 20 player.
Correct. My point is, if they, maybe they were more optimistic at that point that they could extend a Juan Soto, and now they realize they could, then that's why it's hard to go too deep into this. But my thing is just, I think this was an AJ Preller moment, that just a classic AJ Preller moment, right?
Yeah.
Where he swings for the fences and he hits home runs sometimes. This is one where, I think he went all in, said, I'm going to get Juan freaking Soto. Why wouldn't I? Which in a nutshell is great. But I think we're going to look back at this one and be like, woo, that was a lot to give up for a small window. And, we'll look back and say, how did that go? If they win in the next couple of years, then it's great. I don't fault them for taking a shot, but I'm not giving up the whole farm for a guy that not only am I not extending, a guy that is more of a DH liability in the outfield type. So I know he's one of the best hitters in the game. I thought it was very fascinating. Anyway, it takes away from the Machado extension. I love that. If it means you're not keeping Soto, at the end of the day, you got to keep one of them. And if you let Machado walk and then you end up losing Soto down the line, then you're really going to kick yourself. So I don't fault them for taking the bird in hand here. And signing a guy that obviously wanted to stay there, right? Yep. I mean, I imagine that's why he let them know that he was going to exercise the opt-out a year before he did. It gives him a window to like, hey, I want to stay here. I have to exercise my opt-out because I'm leaving hundreds of millions on the table. That said, I'm going to give you a year to like make me a better offer than I think I can get, or at least a competitive offer, and I'll stay. So it worked. But I think that might have been why at that point the Padres said, hey, like, we don't want to risk losing both. We might as well take the bird in hand here. Like, we know Machado will sign for X. Can't fault them for that. But that's why I'm always a little wary of putting all your eggs in one basket on a trade like that.
So my only counterpoint there is think about how badly a Padres fan base and how badly Padres ownership would want a golden era of Padres baseball. And they unlocked 2.5 years of a golden era of Padres baseball.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's fair. And We'll see. Again, if they do some special stuff, I mean, I thought
If
last
they
year was,
win it, it's worth it. If they
yeah.
win the World Series this year
Oh
and
yeah,
don't next year and
100%.
Soto walks, worth it.
100%. So I won't say anything bad yet. But I will say like it's not, I don't think even if they lose in the, in whatever round in the NLCS the next 2 years, I don't think you could say it was a bad move. I think you could just look back and say, I wonder what else they could have done with those assets. But at the end of the day, they're giving themselves a great shot and they're going for it, and you can't fault them for that.
Here's another one for you. If they don't win, if they go to the NLCS each of the next 2 years, Juan Soto is top 3 in NL MVP voting each of the next 2 years. Was it worth it?
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think that's the value of 2 MVP seasons. Sure. Yeah, I think so. So again, I'm with your counterpoint. I hear it.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of scenarios where what I'm saying is null. But it's just something that kind of started to creep into my mind. I'm like, this could be interesting to look back on, because when it happened, we're like, oh, no brainer, and they have to extend him after that package, right? So now it's like they better get the Juan Soto that they traded for the next 2 years, because if they don't extend him, they better get some value over the next couple seasons, and I think they will. He also looked fantastic, by the way, today.
I mean, he pumped out a bomb, and like we're expecting a guy to roll out of bed and have a 410 OBP, right?
Yeah, and 2 seasons of that, I guess, is worth whatever prospect capital you want. I mean, that's fair.
Now, transitioning to my first of 3 spring training overreactions for this episode, Mackenzie Gore looked fucking awesome on Saturday. 95-96 with the heater. The secondaries were there. Threw 18 pitches, 13 for strikes, if I'm remembering correctly. If Mackenzie Gore is healthy, you saw what he could do in the front half of last year, where he was pretty much atop the Rookie of the Year leaderboards until he went down and Harris and Strider took it from him. Mackenzie Gore, like, I saw the frontline guy that I think a lot of people saw in 2019, and I think a lot of people saw it as well at the beginning of his major league career a year ago.
100%. And I think it's really about the health at this point, because I'm pretty sold on him being at least close enough to that version that we always thought he could be, right? I think he's back to at least high profile pitching prospects, Mackenzie Gore. I don't know if he's back to generational left-handed talent, which I don't think was fair to him.
Kershaw 2.0. Yeah.
He was more advanced than most players we've seen his age, and we got excited. But I think this is a guy that's a really good middle of the rotation lefty, which is extremely valuable. And then with room for a little bit more. Yeah, the fastball averaged 95.5 miles per hour, and 8 of the 9 he threw were strikes.
That's great, man.
He was getting ahead of everybody. He mixed in the curve, mixed in the slider, even threw a change. I mean, everything looked really good there. So I'm excited to see more of him. And again, I mean, it's a really valuable piece for the Nationals here. And talk about like a guy that this is where you're looking at spring training, right? I mean, that's what you want to see.
Yes.
Not even just the results. Oh, Gore is sitting mid 90s to
he
upper
looks
90s
good
and throwing strikes. That's what you want to look at spring training for. Like, oh, he looks good. Don't chase the results. But yeah, I like that. What else you got?
Reed Detmers looked really, really good.
Talk about another X factor, dude. If that guy's closer to a 2 for them, which it's possible, if he's closer to a 2, that team, we might start buying in again, man.
I'm bought into Detmers, man. I think Reed Detmers can absolutely be the 3 for them. And I think you look at Ohtani, Tyler Anderson, and Reed Detmers as a front 3.
That's legit.
Feel great about that.
That's legit. And the bullpen's good.
Yeah, they're fine. And the lineup depends what Joe Adell is. I know Joe Adell hit a bomb. No. Yeah.
We'll save it for the preview. What's your third?
That's fine. My third, I prefer watching pitchers this early in spring training as opposed to hitters, because I think pitchers are so far ahead. And we've talked about this. Like, pitchers can throw bullpens all offseason. Like, they can go through a ramp-up process. Pitchers are seeing live major league arms for the first time all offseason. So yeah, pitching is like ahead. Pitching is much farther ahead than I think hitters are. So I like watching the pitchers. But the one hitter that's jumped out to me is the guy that's going to go 50-50 in 2025. Zach Veen, through his first 2 games, is 3 for 5 with 2 doubles and a nuke, man. Are you bought in, or are you bought in?
Here we go. I can't believe you're saving Veen. I didn't think that was going to be one of your takeaways.
Come on, man. Veen,
I'm excited.
Another arm real quick. Taj Bradley looked great as well.
Yeah.
The fastball was jumping, but that's beside the point. Give me your Zach Veen take.
I'm excited. I want to see what Veen can do. It was a rough double-A stint. I think he's extremely talented. So this is good. It's good experience for him. Just see if he can handle the velo, see how he handles some tougher competition. But I will say the Taj Bradley storyline, and I want to do an episode at some point. I know we're pretty scheduled out. Yeah, and a lot of content over the next however many months, especially over the weeks leading into the season. We're action packed at the Just Baseball show.
After opening day, we can talk about whatever we want.
Yes. Yeah. I want to talk about like prospect storylines, and player storylines, because it'll probably be a good call-up episode, because there are players here that I will kind of take back a little bit of what I said and say, watch their results a little bit more closely. Maybe not in the first week, but as we get to week 2, 3 and onward, like watch Taj Bradley's results a little bit more, because how he looks can it very much expedite how long he needs to stay in AAA. Yes. Same with Yuri Perez. Like, this is an opportunity for him to show, hey, I'm pretty damn near ready to go. Like, if you start me in triple, I'm ready to go. You can see that with a few other guys that I think are going to get the opportunity to pitch, aren't expected to break in on opening day, but can really shorten the length of time that they're expected to stick in triple by their performance out here. And we'll talk about that on the call, because I think there's a slew of pitchers and hitters that kind of fit in that bucket.
100%. And this is like the best time for the prospect people, because I grew up going out to Arizona and seeing the Cubs and White Sox play spring training. And I'm sure you went to the ballpark with your dad growing up during spring training, and it was a great time. Mm-hmm. And at the very beginning of my spring training presence, you would see the 78s and the 87s and the 92s and say, who the hell are those guys? But now that means something, because typically they're MLB ready or close to MLB ready prospects.
Yep. Yeah. Which is so fun. That's why I've really enjoyed watching the end of these games. I mean, when the lineup turns over, some teams it's a disaster, and guys that I don't care about. But a lot of teams, it's like, oh, here's Jackson Merrill, here's Jackson Holiday. Here are some really exciting prospects, one after another. So, and that stuff we'll talk about on the call up too. And again, I'm not chasing results there. I'm just chasing poise and how they're commanding their at bats, how comfortable they look, and then of course a little bit of the flash and flare, like a Casey Schmidt hitting the ball to the freaking moon. Yes. Like, oh, that swing looks a little better. That's
Ronnie Mauricio going 450 feet.
He looks a little different. That's something I'm buying into. So yeah, I'm excited to break more of that down, but we got some first basemen to break down, right?
We do. 2025 Zach Veen is going to be an absolute movie, a feature film, but now top 10 first baseman in Major League Baseball. 3 honorable mentions: Rhys Hoskins with the Phillies, Ryan Mountcastle with the Orioles, Ty France with the Mariners. Let's start with Hoskins, because yes, he punches out. Yes, he plays average to below average defense. But yes, he does average 30 homers over 162 in his career. Feels like he's a walking 30 homer guy, and he's exactly what the Phillies need in that lineup with so much star power. They've got some reliability offensively with Hoskins.
Yeah, it's funny, like the irony of what you said. He's a walking 30 homer guy. He literally is a walking 30 homer guy. He walks a ton, and he always hits around 27 to 30 home runs. The career walk rate of 13.5%. Like, that is crazy. The boost you want to see from a guy who's never going to hit above 250. Like, and aside from the 50 game stretch that we saw from him in his rookie year, he's never hit above 250. But guess what? He doesn't hit 190 either. He hangs right around the 230, 240. Usually, I mean, you look at the last three seasons, he's been like Chris Davis almost, and Chris with a K. Or 245 in 2020, 247 in 2021, and 246 in 2022. He's a couple balls bouncing away from replicating the triple, 3 years in a row. I think it was 4 for Chris Davis, which will never be matched in the history of the game. I'll stand by that. But I mean, this is a guy that he's going to walk, he's going to run into baseballs, and he's going to be good. Honestly, I was very tempted to make the case to put him in here, because if you look at the pure offensive perspective,
it's reliable.
He's a top 10 bat. And this is my point I want to make here, because I really still felt like, man, you could make the case for him. He has never had an F4 above 2.4 because his defense is so bad. So even though defense may only be 15% of the equation, maybe less at first base, if you're arguably the worst defender at your position, it's really going to hold you back unless you're one of the best bats. And he's not one of the best bats. He's a really solid one. And that's why he's just outside.
100%. We're going to get to the worst defender at this position who is in the top 10, but I promise you this, he's not very high up because the glove is that bad. Ryan Mountcastle, I think everybody was expecting a breakout in 2022. You didn't get it. Feels very Alec Boehme, where all of a sudden he can come back and start mashing. I had a good conversation with Taylor Davis about Mountcastle on Show and Go, which is, again, part of the Just Baseball Network, wherever you get your podcast, that whole shebang. But Mountcastle, like, he can't be affected that much by the walls moving back. Like, that's a problem. It's an adapt or die situation. And Mountcastle, with how good of a bat he is, I can guarantee that he's going to do more adapting than dying.
Yeah, I'm a big Mountcastle fan. Ultimately, I think that's just a casualty of the position. He's a really good ball player. I think he'd be an honorable mention at a lot of other positions too. He just hasn't quite exploded the way we've been waiting for. But I think that's one of those guys that every single year I'm going to be like, this is the year he breaks out. This is the year he breaks out. But still really young. If I'm not mistaken, that's a guy that's still, 26?
Yeah.
Is
25?
Ryan, he might be 25.
He is 26. Hey, happy belated birthday, Ryan Mountcastle. Turned 26 on February 18th.
Bang, there you go. I mean, this is a young guy. He's still got plenty of time.
Yeah. All right, next one, Ty France. 28-year-old Ty France, first All-Star nod this past year, somehow put together his first season with an OPS under 800 since 2019. So 2020, he was above 800. 2021, he was above 800. And here he is pumping out a 774. But, this guy's a career 280 hitter. And Ty France, you call the Ty France effect with Vinny Pasquantino, right? You hit at every level. You never get the prospect pedigree, and you get up to the major league level, and you just keep on hitting.
I mean, that's exactly what Ty France does. I think this is the one that when we look back at the end of the year, we'll be like, he should have been a top 10 guy. I'm not saying we were wrong or anything like that. I think our hand was forced here by a guy that was playing banged up last year, and did kind of take a step back a little bit offensively
in the second half.
Still just kind of seemed like it just wasn't all there for him for the whole course of the season. And other guys really did step up in the second half, and that's what we'll get into at number 10. But when you hit 229 in the second half of the season, like I really think it was injury related, and I think he's going to be really good this year, but that's going to hold you back. I love Franco because he's kind of different for a first baseman. He's not going to hit bajillion home runs, but he's not going to strike out. He's going to get on base at a decent clip, even though he doesn't walk a ton. He just puts bat on ball. He's a really unique profile, and that's why I've coined. Yeah, he's the reason why I look deeper into bat first prospects, because of the Ty France effect that I kind of picked up on through his years in the Padres system, where no one gave him love. But if you look at the minor league box scores or the minor league stats on Fangraphs, you'll never see a WRC plus with 2 digits in it. It'll always be well over 100.
That's cool, man. All right. I will push back. I think if there's one guy at the end of the year that we look back on and we say, how was he not top 10? It's Mountcastle. I think it's going to be one of these two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I could see Mountcastle going for like 38 homers.
I definitely could see it clicking for Mountcastle. I mean, remember when we were giving our ridiculous predictions?
50.
that was my guy. That was, he's going to hit 50 at 33 in 2021. I'm like, he's going to make the leap. That was my one ridiculous call. He only hit 22, was affected by the walls too. We'll see. But I think he's got 30 in the tank easy. I'm
still banking on Eloy Jimenez to have a 50 homer season.
It's coming.
It's absolutely coming, man. All you got to do is stay on the field. But he played right in what I think the White Sox first spring training game, which barf. All right, number 10. Yeah. Number 10, Nathaniel Lowe with the Texas Rangers. He was a 3-win player a year ago, was a 300 guy, hit 302 with a 358 OBP, a 492 slug, 27 homers, 76 driven in, a 143 WRC plus. Problem for Lowe. Yes, he's a 300 guy. Yes, he was flirting with 30 homers. He is so far and away the worst defensive first baseman you will find in Major League Baseball. He pushes the boundaries of the narrative that it doesn't matter how bad of a defensive first baseman you are.
And this is kind of the segue from the Hoskins point. you're going to have to really stand out offensively to be able to circumvent the defense. And I thought, we end up comparing bat to bat. Yes, Hoskins has more, track record, but what Nathaniel Lowe did last year, I think going into this coming season, you've got to be expecting Lowe to have the better year. And I mentioned that, we've never seen a 3-win season from, somebody like Hoskins because of the defense. Lowe still posted a 3 FWAR despite being the worst defender at the position. You can improve marginally at first base defensively, and he'll be a 3.5, 4-win player if he can just improve a little bit defensively. The big thing that put him in the top 10 for me, Jack, was the second half. This guy was spectacular. He was one of the best hitters in baseball in the second half. A 176 WRC plus. He hit 339, 399, 566. People can talk about there was some good batted ball luck. You get some of the underlying metrics. Oh yeah, he was a little lucky here or there. I don't care. He hit 340 and got on base at a 400 clip and slugged 566. Subtract the luck factor. Okay, he hit 300, 360, 520 then? Like, how much you want to subtract here? This guy was one of the best hitters in baseball in the second half, luck or not.
Really interesting to note that Lowe is actually a really good left-on-left hitter. He hit 330 against left-handed pitching. So, I mean, that obviously helps, right? Like, you see more right-handed arms. So, like, yeah, he's going to be more comfortable there. And he hit 288 against them, but he slugged 471. He slugged 536 against lefties, too. So, I'm sure, like, when he was seeing the ball right after the All-Star break, he was seeing the ball right from the left side and from the right side.
Yep.
So, I mean, he's also like just a big ass dude, man. 6'4", 220. He feels 6'6", 240. Like, he just feels like a menacing guy in the batter's box.
100%. And he is a menacing guy that was hitting the ball on the ground too much. So you cut down the ground ball rate by 6% and hit the ball in the air a little bit more. That's where you get another 9 home runs, which is what you got in the same amount of games last year. So this is a guy that kind of figured it out and then figured out how to get the ball in the air a little bit more and tap into what is really good power that we're starting to finally see fully make its way into games. I think he could be another guy that flirts with 30 and hits, 280 plus next year. That's a top 10 first baseman, even if you boot a lot of balls.
Yep. Lowe's offensive game has transformed. So has Anthony Rizzo's with the New York Yankees. He's the number 9 first baseman in baseball going into this year. 2.4 FWAR last year. Rizzo is not the Rizzo that you are accustomed to seeing with the Chicago Cubs. Anthony Rizzo was a low batting average guy, hit 224, but he still slugged 480. He pumped out 32 homers. He walked at a 10.5% clip. He struck out at a K rate under 20%. He was still a 133 WRC plus guy. He was fine by the advanced metric defensively. Like, don't really care about that. Like, that was a former perennial Gold Glover. Anthony Rizzo's game has totally changed, though, and I think it's good at this point in his career that he's playing in Yankee Stadium, because while he doesn't have that crazy impact and the ability to hit 300 anymore like he did in Chicago when he was an MVP candidate, what he can do is strategically lift the ball to the pull side and pump out 32 homers.
And that's exactly what he's doing. It's funny, actually. I've had the opportunity to just even actually talk to him about the shift. And this was when he was like peak getting shifted. And he's just like, there's not much you can do. You can try to force one the other way or go over it. And I pick my spots to go over it. This is when he was still playing with the Cubs. It's a little bit harder to go over it when you don't have a short porch in right field. But now, he's in a scenario here where a lot of his flyouts that went out at Yankee, or a lot of his old flyouts turned into home runs in right field at Yankee Stadium. And he knows that. And that's why he was selling out and taking advantage of it. And that's a really key thing for him, which I think he's going to continue to do. I think people are looking for, I think like the number one, like little bonus that everyone's trying to add to their favorite hitter that tends to go pull side a little bit is like, oh, but they're banning the shift, so he'll be even better next year. Like, it's always the icing on the cake for any guy you're trying to make an argument on. But for one guy that I really do think it's going to make a major difference for, it's Anthony Rizzo, because he's going to go over the shift. But in the times that he doesn't, how many times do we see him hit like a one hot liner to a second baseman playing 30 feet out in right field? Like, those are going to get through for the most part now. So I think we're going to see the average bounce back a little bit too. But this guy selling out pull side is going to still be one of the top 10 first basemen in baseball because he's going to get enough home runs out. He's not going to strike out, and he's going to walk.
Couple career numbers that point to that. Anthony Rizzo's launch angle last year, 19.3 degrees, was over 2 degrees higher than his average launch angle of any other year of his entire career. When you look at fly ball rate, 35% fly ball rate a year ago. That's the only time in his career since StatCast started tracking that he is above 30%. I mean, just going year by year. 2019, 21% fly ball rate. 2020, 22%. 2021, 27%. 2022, 35%. And how about pull rate? Because pull rate jumped by nearly 3% from his career high, which was in 2021. So this guy is obviously making a change to pull, and he's getting under way more pitches. You look at under percentage on StatCast, which is like the amount of times that your barrel is underneath the ball and you like immediately pop it up. Last year, the only time, aside from 2020 small sample, that he was above 30% in his career. So he's saying, if I miss-hit a ball, I better be getting under it as opposed to getting on top of it.
And here's the beautiful thing, man. With all those numbers comes the highest slugging percentage for Anthony Rizzo since 2019. And beyond that, the fourth highest of his career, that since we've been able to really track it. So in terms of the expected slugging as well. So, I mean, when it comes to like the StatCast era, this is the best slugging we've seen from him in the StatCast era. So I think it speaks to him just knowing what works for him, and I think it's going to continue to work for him. I think he's going to be 30 home runs again.
Now, I am going to miss the 290 hitter with the 380 OBP.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But 30 home runs at Yankee Stadium will play. That'll always play.
290 hitter with a 380 OBP. Vinny Pasquantino is the 8th best first baseman in baseball heading into 2023. Listen, I understand that he just passed his rookie qualification in 2022. I understand that he was a 1.5 FWAR guy. I think we as a collective unit are all the way bought into Vinny Pasquantino because he slashed 295, 383, 450 in just under 300 plate appearances, 10 homers, 26 RBIs, but 11.7% walk rate, 11.5% K rate, had a 137 WRC plus. Guess what? This guy has done that, exactly that, at every stop of his baseball career, from Old Dominion to the minor leagues, now to the major leagues. Vinny could hit 300 with 20 homers for Kansas City this year.
Yeah. No, I mean, this guy's, we've talked about it a lot on the podcast, but like, it's one of the more ridiculous profiles I've seen. That's why I've loved him since the minors, early in the minors. In the big leagues, in his 70 game stretch of getting his feet wet in the big leagues, 92% zone contact.
Insane.
That is a plus hitter. That's a 70 grade hit score. And on top of that, he's a first base masher. Oh, on top of that, he has a good approach. He walks, he doesn't strike out. Like, this is a guy that I think if you queued up, and I'm probably going to try to do this at some point, max exit velocity and zone contact, and said, give me all the players with a max exit velocity over 110 and a zone contact of above 92%. It's a very short list.
Yeah. Very,
very, very short list. And Vinny Pasquantino's on it. And I think the max exit velo is going to be higher as he has more, batted ball events. But this is a special offensive talent. A guy that I would bet a lot of money on having an OPS well over 800 this year. And I think that's just a testament to how well-rounded he is of a hitter. He's almost kind of like he's like the Italian Jordan in a way, with just the way that he hits for power and for average. Obviously, he's got a little bit of ways to go to be as prolific as Jordan, but he has a lot of similarities that you just don't find very often.
I was going to say, like, if you were to query that, where you query zone contact and average exit velocity, it's probably Vinny and Jordan, and then there's like a big drop off.
Mookie maybe.
Mookie maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
McNeil will surprise you with how hard he hits it, but I don't know if he'd be up there in terms of like 90th percentile exit velocity.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's the crazy thing. Like, any underlying statistic, and I know there's more to the game than that, but I mean, he's already producing on the surface too. Any underlying statistic, you're going to queue up whatever thresholds you want to dwindle the number of players, the player pool. It'll be Vinny Pasquantino, and you pick 3 elite hitters. Like, I can come up with any different important offensive statistic, advanced stat, batted ball data metric, and it'll be Vinny Pasquantino and your favorite hitter. Like,
Do you think
that's who he is.
do you think like we're having an elite hitter conversation about Vinny after this year?
Yes, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
What do
Barring
you
injury,
make it?
without a doubt.
So I think that his toe tap, like I think that his lead leg is so cool because that feels like the timing mechanism that I would be teaching like 8-year-olds when they're first learning pitch ball.
He makes it simple, man. He makes it simple, and he's got his moves down. And there's nothing more refreshing than to watch a guy like that. So for all you in your fantasy leagues, definitely pick that guy up. He's not going to be at number 8 by the end of the year. I promise you that.
100%. Vinny Pasquantino, last point on him, hit 316 with a 507 slug off fastballs, hit 308 with a 508 slug off breaking balls. So if you're trying to beat him, you better have a really good changeup or splitter because you're not going to beat him with a fastball and you're not going to beat him with a breaking ball. And that's what pretty much everybody throws now.
And sorry. Also, by the way, crushed lefties too. Go ahead.
Yeah, there you go. So you better have a damn good changeup. Number 7 is Christian Walker with the Arizona Diamondbacks. 4.1 WAR last year. If you heard that name and you say, "What the hell is Christian Walker doing here above Rizzo, above Vinny?" It's because Christian Walker lit the world on fire a year ago. Hit 242 with a 477 slug, 36 homers, 94 driven in, walk rate over 10%, K rate under 20%, a 122 WRC plus, and he was an elite defensive first baseman.
How about that?
Outs.
Would you have expected that?
Nope. Not at all. You watch him in the batter's box and you think like, oh, no shot. This guy plays a good first base. He plays a great first base. 17 defensive runs saved, 14 outs above average. You pair that with 36 homers and 94 driven in. You've got one of the most all-around solid first basemen in Major League Baseball.
He is really one of my favorite breakout guys last year because everything that you look at points towards, I think, him being able to do it again. I really do, because this is we need to see him do it again situation here. And I know some may have him ranked a little bit lower. Some may have him ranked higher because of the year that he had. I think where we have him is a fair spot because 36 home runs is a big deal. Cutting your strikeout rate while doing so to the lowest of your career is a big deal. And then the defense, I think, really puts him over the top here because, I know that the bat is the most important thing. But if you're having a breakout offensive year and being one of the best defenders at the position and striking out the least you've ever struck out and walking a good deal, like, what is there not to like about Walker? Obviously, he's not, going to be the batting average on base machine that you want to see. But I mean, the power is ridiculous. And he's finally tapping into it more consistently, like in games. I'm really excited to see how he follows last year, especially on a much more exciting overall, but just more exciting Diamondbacks team. I think he's going to be a really important middle of the order masher for them for a while. But what a time to have a career year at age 31.
Yeah, right. I mean, so you play elite defense, you have this power that you tap into. Okay, what's left? Like not throwing away at bats. This guy's chase rate's really good. 23% chase rate is in the top 20% of Major League Baseball. So, I mean, this guy is selective enough. Again, he walks over 10% of the time. He's the type that even if he's not hitting the ball out of the ballpark, he's still providing ample value for Arizona. And I think they can totally move off of the Seth Beer experiment. I think they were excited about that possibility, but Beer strikes out way too much. Christian Walker has proven to be way safer than I think the Arizona Diamondbacks were expecting Christian Walker to be.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm interested to see like if he can duplicate it, but I do think he will. You talked about the chase rates. I think the zone contact was the best that it's been. There just seems to be something that clicked for him offensively. I hope it continues because this is a cool story and a team that I know we're all really excited about. But Walker has a chance to be one of the more just balanced first basemen in the game. To hit you 30 home runs, keep the strikeout rate respectable, and now play great defense, he might follow up with another 4-win season. I don't think it would be crazy, which is tough to do at first base.
100%. Balance is the name of the game, and a 4-win season is the name of the game for our next guy. Jose Abreu is number 6 on this list, was with the Chicago White Sox, now with the world champion Houston Astros. Hit 304 with a 378 OBP, a 446 slug, 9% walk rate, 16% K rate. He had a WRC plus flirting with 140 at 138. Yeah. He was a fine defensive first baseman. Listen, Abreu, so much of the narrative around him is team leader, right? He was the best thing to happen to the White Sox since Paul Konerko. And yes, all of the above. The White Sox just lost their captain. The Astros just got a lot better at first base by adding a reliable guy that if he does play the whole year, last year felt a little fluky where he was 15 homers, 75 RBIs. He was like a walking 30 and 100. I think that he's probably a shoe-in for 20 homers and close to 90 driven in that lineup.
That's the funny thing too, because I remember people talking about that at the end of last year, like, oh, he's getting older, his power's down, whatever. And I don't really think so. I think this was a guy that just had a different plan at the plate, which was just drive the baseball, and he drove the baseball, right? Like his strikeout rate was the lowest of his career. His WRC plus was up 12 points from the year where he had double the homers, right? Like sometimes it's okay to have less homers. He had 35 more hits. He had 10 more doubles. Like he was still hitting the baseball consistently and consistently hard. And I do think he's going to sneak in some more home runs now in Houston. I think he's going to drive in a lot of runs too, but this was still a fantastic offensive season. He tied his career higher, I guess, excluding his rookie season where he hit 317 like a freak. This was the second highest batting average of his career.
Hey man, he hit 317 in 2020.
Oh yeah, true. I always naturally omit that.
That's reigning that's 2020 MVP Jose Abreu.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But what I will say is like this version of Abreu plays, and I think this is more set up for sustainable success as he ages. Not I'm going to club 30 home runs, because when he does slow down a little bit, if the
Nelson Cruz thing.
If they do taper down a little bit, okay, I can still drive the ball in the gaps. I can still be a productive hitter at the big league level while only hitting 15 home runs. It is very impressive to have your home run total cut in half and up your WRC plus by 12 points. That's a testament to how well-rounded a hitter Jose Abreu is.
He grounded it in 19 double plays a year ago compared to 28 double plays in 2021. Does that mean anything to you?
Yes, it tells me that he's just hitting the ball harder and driving it into the gaps more, baby.
It doesn't mean shit to me. I was just picking a random number, but okay. Yeah, it's going to be sad to see Jose Abreu in a non-White Sox uniform, but I'm happy for him because he's on the best team in baseball.
Yeah.
Number 5 is Matt Olson, who was a 3-win player in his first year in Atlanta. Matt Olson hit 240 with a 325 OBP and a 477 slug, 34 homers, 103 driven in, an 11% walk rate, 24% K rate, a 120 WRC plus, 6 defensive runs saved, and 3 outs above average at first base. He is a Gold Glove caliber first baseman. I think that when he's right, he's one of the most fearsome hitters in Major League Baseball and should be one of the most feared hitters in Major League Baseball. I think that this guy, even coming off of 34 and 103, is going to be an absolute masher this year for the Braves.
Yeah. Is it just me, or are you like a little disappointed from last year?
I'm a little disappointed, but like, I don't know why.
It's kind of to make my point. It's like, here we are a little disappointed he played all 162, which by the way, that's always going to get a hat tip from me.
Yeah.
34 bombs, all the numbers you just said, 120 WRC plus and sprinkled on a little bit of defensive value.
A 93 mile an hour average exit velo.
Yeah, he hits the shit out of the ball. But like, it just shows you where he set the bar for himself after the year that he had in 2019 and then again in 2021, right? Like this guy set the bar so high off of those 2 seasons. We get him moving out of Oakland into a more hitter-friendly ballpark, into a more hitter-friendly lineup, and I think we were just expecting like MVP candidate, and I think that was maybe a little bit. We maybe jumped the gun there a little bit for a guy that's now going to a bigger market for the first time. That's now, playing in a different environment for the first time. He played, 8 seasons or parts of 7 seasons with Oakland before that. I think this is a guy that could make the leap that we kind of were expecting him to instantly make this year, right? I don't know what that means, because the guys ahead of him are all freaks. What is the leap? Because he was nasty last year,
right?
But again, we feel disappointed. So like, why do we feel disappointed? What can he be? What should he have been? Was it 271, 371, 540 like he was in 2021? We were almost expecting more than that. Like, was that just unreasonable from us? Like, I find the whole Matt Olson situation and like just fascinating, because he was good last year.
Yeah, maybe it's like a Braves thing, but Ozzie Albies, again, the king of the counting stat. Like, he's 30 and 100, and somehow he's got like a 780 OPS. Matt Olson, 44 doubles, 34 homers, 103 RBIs, and his OPS is 110 points worse than it was in the year prior. But like, that's the bar that he set for himself. Like you're saying, he had 39 homers in one of the most pitcher-friendly ballparks in Major League Baseball. Like,
I was ready for 40.
I was ready for 50, dude. I was buying into, and I still buy into the idea that I think that Matt Olson contract is a better contract than the Freddie Freeman contract. But at the beginning of the year
Freeman had,
I mean, like, looking at the front 2 years of this deal, I totally think Freddie's the better option than Matt Olson. But as Freddie ages and Matt Olson gets into his ripe years, Olson's 28 years old. It feels like he's 32. He's 28. I think that he's going to age so well. And he's just a huge dude with a massive swat of a swing. Like, there's nobody else's swing screams like crazy, big, powerful swat than Matt Olson. It's frightening.
I love it. It's a different kind of swat. The other swat is the Stanton swat, but it's two different swats.
And I like Olson's a little bit more.
I like Olson's. Yes. One, it looks better, but two, even if it didn't look better, if you flip Stanton on the left side, it'd probably look better.
Yeah.
There's the natural aesthetic of it. Although Stanton swing lefty would be bizarre to look at. I need someone to, anyone that listens to this and is just really bored, can you please tweet us like a mirrored Stanton swing from the left side?
I bet it looks dumb as hell.
People were doing it with Tua from the right with his right arm, and they're like, "Look how much better he looks!" Like I told you, it's just everyone's just shitting on him because he's a lefty, and it became like a meme. Can someone please send me a Stanton reverse, like left-handed swing? Feel free to tweet that at us. We'll retweet it from the Just Baseball account. I'll retweet it from my personal.
I'm sure we're gonna get. Yeah, I'm sure we're gonna get somebody tweeting at us with that. Last question about like the jump. Do you think that leap that we're expecting him to take puts him in the conversation of the top 4? Or do you think it's, hey, he's still really, really good, but he's not close to these top 4?
I'm going to be an asshole who cops out here. I think it really depends on what the top 4 do, because the top 4 ain't going anywhere. And I think there's an interesting storyline in each of the 4 ahead in terms of whether they can hold that spot or improve enough to hold that spot for some of the other guys that were kind of, given the benefit of the doubt, like maybe the guy ahead of him, who I think he could take his spot, but it's also a guy that we're expecting to make that leap too. So I think it really depends on everybody else, because I think the guys ahead of him could match even that level up season from Matt Olson.
This is fucking crazy, but Vlad Guerrero Jr. is the 4th best first baseman in baseball in 2023. I mean, shit, dude. He's coming off of a season where, yes, he had 700 plate appearances, played an entire year, but was a 2.8 win guy. Yeah. Hit 274, 339, 480, 32 homers, 97 driven in, a 132 WRC plus. Again, average to slightly below average defensively at first base. But Vladdy Jr., I don't think it's... yes, it is like him not taking the leap to Yordan Alvarez type production that we were expecting him to. But it's also like he just got dinged from probably 1. We put him at 2 last year, all the way to 4 because of what 1 and 2 and 3 did.
Correct. Like that's the biggest thing. Now, I'm glad you said it, because I wanted to emphasize that it is not much. It is not an
indictment on Vladdy.
Exactly. It's not a concern about his 2023 season. I think if you surveyed everybody who played a part in these rankings, nobody thinks that Vladdy will have a year that is either on par with last year or worse, which is crazy because, again, he was good last year. It was
32 homers, 97 driven in. Like, if we're going to look at homers and RBIs for any position, it's first base.
Yeah, and it's a 132 WRC plus. But, I think the way we've been looking at these rankings is like still waiting 2021 as a season. And the craziest part is we did with Vladdy. We very much waited the 48 home runs, the 166 WRC plus, and the 6.3 F4. But the reality is all the guys ahead of him have either been close to that for back-to-back years or just did that. So that's the one thing that holds Vladdy back. But again, Vladdy, if he gets back to that 2021 form, which I think he will, the only thing that was holding him back last year was higher chase rates and more ground balls. He was just chasing too much, over a 30% chase rate, and the ground ball rate was 8% higher than usual. That really did him in, and which is interesting because his chase rate jumped by like almost 10%. As a result, the ground ball rate jumps. You're chasing more pitches at the bottom of the zone, harder to drive the ball in the air. All of a sudden, fastballs were affecting a little bit more. So I think this was just a natural adjustment period for him, where the league came out with a scouting report that was, finally started to work a little bit on him. And I think we'll see a guy that's extremely talented adjust back. And even then, he was still great last year.
You know what the craziest thing to me is? Year by year, how he fared against fastballs from 2021 to 22. Have you looked at this like at any point in the offseason? Because
he was a joke against fast, like in the best way possible. Like
he was 371 with a 670 slug against fastballs in 2021. And here he is putting together a dog shit 2022 against fastballs where he hit 295 with a 556 slug.
Yeah. Isn't that nuts?
I mean, like, he's an all-star against fastballs in 2022, but he's Barry freaking Bonds against fastballs in 2021.
And that's basically the difference between what we saw last year and what we saw the year before that.
Dude, and like breaking balls, he slugged 550 against him in 2021. He slugged 420 against him this past year. So, I mean, everything just kind of ticked down, but he's still really, really good against these pitches. I think he set the bar so high for himself in 21 that he puts together this solid year in 22, and everybody is having the Matt Olson panic where it's, oh my gosh, what happened to Vladdy? Like, we're screwed here. But
he's going to be just fine.
I think so too. But Pete Alonso bunny hops him. Alonso is the third best first baseman in baseball in 2023. Alonso was a 4-win player, 40 homers, 131 driven in. He was the best run producer in Major League Baseball a year ago. He had a 143 WRC plus. Really underrated part of Alonso's game. 10% walk rate, 19% K rate. You think with that juice, with that run production, and with that physique, he's going to punch out all the time? Guess what? He doesn't. He's not that good of a defensive first baseman, but the bat and what he does in the middle of the Mets order, if there's any $300 million first baseman on this list that isn't Vladdy Jr., it's probably Pete Alonso.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, I still think that Vladdy has a good chance of jumping back over Pete Alonso.
Yeah, I think he has a good chance of jumping everybody.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think after what Alonso just followed up his 2021 with, to have an even better year, to up his 37 home runs to 40, to up the batting average, the on base percentage, match the slugging percentage. It's just really hard to poke a hole in what Alonso's doing offensively, to drive in 131 runs. And I know people can say, RBI is a luck stat, being in the right place stat. Sure, somewhat. But if you drive in 131, you got something going right. And that's just a guy that's got something going right. And this is a really, when it comes to power, it's such a pure hitter for how powerful he is. And that's, to your point on the strikeouts. This is somebody that I think you can pencil in for 35 to 40 home runs, I think, for a very long time moving forward. And he's going to be good for a very, very long time. I think Vladdy can go more nuclear because of the bat to ball skills just being on another level, even above a pure hitter like Alonso, as we're talking about, compared to some of these other guys. But Alonso's floor is so high. What he's done the last 2 years is just so consistently good that he's earned it. He's grinded past Vladdy with his last 2 seasons.
So he has played 530 games. He's played pretty much 4 full seasons, right? He debuted on opening day in 2019. He played the full season in 2020. And then he played 152 games in 21, 160 games in 22. 162 game average. He's got an 884 OPS, 45 homers, 116 RBIs.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, like, here's the thing, man. We say that Vladdy has the chance to go more nuclear than Pete Alonso, as if Pete Alonso's this super bland player. 45 homers and 116 RBIs. I'm so jealous of Ryan Finkelstein for turning on the TV and watching this guy every single night. And he was pounding the pavement like Pete Alonso's better than Vladdy. Blech. And I think Peter was pushing back. It's like, come on, dude, it's Vladdy. And Fink was like, come on, dude, it's Pete Alonso. And it got to a point where I was like, fuck, dude, you're right. Come on, it's Pete Alonso. Like 45 and 116 on an average basis over 162.
The floor is just like steady at this point. And I'm really excited because I think it's going to be a showdown of sorts between them two in terms of like, those might be the two best offensive forces this coming season, especially with Jordan looking banged up. There's a legit scenario where those are the two guys in each league that, you know, are putting up some of the most impressive counting stats when we talk about the Triple Crown and stuff like that. Those are the two guys I think will be putting up the most home runs and RBI without a doubt.
Yeah, 100%. But let's jump to number 2 here. Second best first baseman in the game right now is Paul Goldschmidt, the reigning National League MVP, 7-win player a year ago, hit 317, had a 404 OBP, slugged 578, 35 homers, 115 driven in, 12% walk rate, 22% K rate, a 177 WRC plus, was top 5 in the game. Again, he is a good defensive first baseman. Were you expecting this from Paul Goldschmidt? I was expecting fringe all-star. I was not expecting build the Hall of Fame case, Goldie.
Yeah, this was kind of the, like, you know, stamp the flag down, plant the flag. Like I'm trying to finish strong here and be a Hall of Famer. And I mean, to have the second, arguably the best year of his career, if you count the accolade, but in terms of FWAR, by 0.1, it trails only his 2015 season when he was real, which was really like, that was one of the seasons where we really got to be put on notice on what Paul Goldschmidt's capable of. He had, you know, the 6 WAR season in 2013, took a little bit of a step back in 2014. People were like, oh, maybe he's more like this guy. And then boom, you know, did what he did in 2015. And we've just seen him be consistent. And we thought, you know, maybe he'd just be that fringe all-star for the rest of his career, which is great. That's what the Cardinals acquired. I don't think they expected that much more. And what does he do at age 34? He basically has the best season of his career, close to it. Like, this is so remarkable. To post a 177 WRC plus at 34 years old, to hit 317 and slug near 600. It is so fun to watch this guy hit. And I'm really invested now because he got a later start than some. You know, he hasn't put up some of the threshold numbers that some like to see, but he's about a season or 2 away, I think, from really solidifying the Hall of Fame case, which I don't think people would have said maybe even before this MVP season. He's got to break through 2,000 hits, but I mean, this guy's a 295 career hitter. He has over 300 home runs now. He could have 400 by the time he's done with I think very reasonable number there, and be a high 200s hitter, over 2,000 hits, MVP award in the bank. He's going to have a good case. So I'm bought in on him, just like putting together as many good seasons as he can over the next 4 or 5 years. And hopefully we see Paul Goldschmidt in Cooperstown.
I did it, man. I scrolled to the Hall of Fame case on Baseball Reference. I went deep into the annals of Baseball Reference, right above transactions and salaries. Salaries looks good, by the way. Congratulations to Paul Goldschmidt on making a lot of money so far. But Hall of Fame numbers, 58.5 career WAR. The average Hall of Fame first baseman has 65 career WAR. So he is 2 years away. Or if he does what he did in 2022, he's 1 year away from already matching the average career WAR of first baseman. You look at 7-year peak WAR, you take Paul Goldschmidt's best 7-year stretch, 45.3 WAR. The average among Hall of Fame first basemen, 41.8. Check on both. How about WAR over 162? You take Paul Goldschmidt over his career, over 162 games, he's a 5.8 win player. The average Hall of Fame first baseman is a 4.8 win player. He's checking all the boxes.
Aside from the 2020 season, 5 straight 30 home run seasons.
He's checking all the boxes.
He's just got to do a few more years.
5 Silver Sluggers, 4 Gold Gloves, 7 All-Stars. He finally has an MVP. If St. Louis wins a World Series, start making the bust, Cooperstown.
Yeah. Yep. 391 career on base percentage. This guy's walked with the best of them. And I think that's a really important point too. Like this, how many seasons with over a 400 on base percentage? I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Last year was his 6th season with an on base percentage above 400. Like it's clockwork for this guy. And like, I think that we almost got numb to how consistently good he is. Like he was 290, 390 to 400, 490 to 500, sometimes way higher than that. I would say he's more like 520 to 530 in the slug department every single year. Career average of 295, 391, 527 slash line. Like, yeah, that is insane. And again, he's coming off of a year where he has not shown one semblance of slowing down. And the only reason he's not number one is another guy that's similar to his age that is showing no signs of slowing down either, getting better and better too. So it's really cool with the first baseman is the guys that really figure out their swings and are able to stay healthy. They age really well and just can continue to compile numbers. And I don't think Paul Goldschmidt's going to slow down anytime soon. I really don't.
Number one retires in the next 3 years, which he won't. Is he a Hall of Famer?
Yes.
Okay. Freddie Freeman is the best first baseman in baseball for 2023. Freddie Freeman was the best first baseman in baseball in 2022. 7.1 F-WAR, identical to that of Paul Goldschmidt. He hit 325 with a 407 OBP, a 511 slug, 21 homers, 13 bags, 100 driven in, a 12% walk rate, 14% K rate, 157 WRC plus. Freddie Freeman is as good of a hitting first baseman that we have in this era, aside from Miguel Cabrera. Yeah. Freddie's kind of the king of the position right now.
What he did last year.
Crazy, dude.
You know, and you see the home runs go down by 10, whatever. 325. And now we go over what he did in the shortened season was crazy too. Another short season MVP, another Mickey Mouse MVP, but he hit 341 in that span. And then in 2021 hits 300, and then 2022 hits 325. This guy might do the old reverse of what we normally see, which is that career batting average fighting for its life to stay over 300. He might get it over 300 on the back half of his career. He's at 298, and the way he's been hitting over the last few years, he might get it over 300 with how he's performing. It just seems like Freeman becomes more of an expert on himself the more games he plays. You know, like with AI, just the longer it exists, the more questions it asks, the more information that it's able to just kind of build up and questions that it answers. I feel like Freddie Freeman is almost like AI, where the more games he plays, even though it already seems like he's mastered the approach, mastered the swing, it seems like he just gets better and better. Like he learns more about himself every single at bat. And each time we see him the next season, he looks even more advanced, even more veteran, and even more consistent. And you just rarely see this guy take a bad at bat. It's remarkable. And really, I would argue that he's been better in the second half of his career so far, or at least over the last 5 years, than the 5 years before that, which you don't see guys from age 28 to 32 maybe being better than their age 24 to 27. But that's exactly what the case has been. And I think he's playing his best baseball right now at age 31, 32. So another guy that's, really putting his resume over the top with a better performance on the other side of 30.
So the Hall of Fame numbers, like the black ink on Baseball Reference, doesn't do Freddie any favors at this point because he's 32 years old. But you go to similarity scores, similar hitters through age 32, through their age 32 season: Eddie Murray, Rafael Palmeiro, Carl Yastrzemski, Orlando Cepeda, Billy Williams, Jeff Bagwell, Prince Fielder. 2 of those guys are not Hall of Famers. Prince, because he stopped at 32 with the neck thing, and Rafael Palmeiro because he was pushing horse tranquilizer into his butt cheek. So, I mean, like, That's it. They're all Hall of Famers.
That's it. That's it. So I guess to make a correction, he's probably got to do a few more years too.
A few more years, but like he's relatively young when we start talking about the Hall of Fame case. He's 30.
He's got 5-6 years, I think, of still good production.
He's 33 years old. He's an MVP, a world champ, a Gold Glover, 3 Silver Sluggers, 6 All-Stars. Like when you talk about narrative accumulation, when you talk about like talking about these guys, because we know if old white guys love doing anything, it's talking about how many MVPs and Gold Gloves these guys won, as opposed to, you know, career OPS and things like that. Freddie Freeman, all he needs is 5 more years for the counting stats and maybe 1 or 2 more awards. This guy, what he's done, especially in the back half of his career, and how we think he's going to age, is going to check every Hall of Fame voters box.
50.4 career F4. You imagine he has, you know, what is he averaging per season? Roughly 4 and change.
Yeah.
If he has another 5 seasons at 4 and change, we're talking about an 80 F4 guy.
There we go.
Or excuse me, a 70 F4 guy.
Yeah, but like still with the narrative in Atlanta and then going home to LA, and he's probably going to be on a team that wins a World Series.
And I think that's conservative. 5 years of 4 F4 and change.
It's like, incredibly conservative.
Probably 25, let's say. 75 F4, like that's you're walking in. No matter how much, like even if you aren't, even if voters aren't looking at advanced stats, which we know a lot of them are now, I don't think there's a guy that his traditional stats are so far off from the advanced stats that there's a 74-5 win guy that's not in the Hall of Fame. So, you know, it's awesome to see. And I think he's the number 1 first baseman based on what we're guaranteed to see from him next year and what we still might not know what we're going to see. Like we might see a batting title. We might see, you know, a lot of things that, you know, we haven't consistently seen from him. We've seen him be really good, but we might see the bat to ball continue to just get to a ridiculous level where he's getting on base at a 420 clip. Like we might not have seen the most polished version of Freddie Freeman, the hitter, which is the craziest part.
I think we have. I hope we have, because I don't think my heart could take a better Freddie Freeman. Like it feels like it would be overwhelming to the senses.
You just found out the best version of him here. I'm telling you, my AI theory, the like chat GPT thing, like he's going to just keep getting smarter and better until his body can't keep up anymore.
Are you going to start hiring chat GPT to like write some articles for justbaseball.com?
I've thought about it, you know, with the way, you know, the power rankings, you know, they weren't coming out that consistent.
Yeah, I know.
Year, so
they're not going to write themselves. That's for damn sure.
Hey, well, now they will. So I'm thinking maybe we have chat GPT do the power rankings instead this year.
Love that. All right. Again, top 10 first basemen in Major League Baseball. Our 3 honorable mentions: Rhys Hoskins, Ryan Mountcastle, Ty France. Number 10, Nathaniel Lowe. Number 9, Anthony Rizzo. Vinny Pasquantino was 8, Christian Walker 7, Jose Abreu 6, Matt Olson 5, Vladdy Jr. 4, Pete Alonso 3, Paul Goldschmidt 2, and Freddie Freeman is the best first baseman in baseball heading into the 2023 season. So listen to the call up. At this point, or maybe a little bit later, we've got top 10 Yankees prospects coming out, and that is a system that you like went deep into the rabbit hole in. You put in the man hours.
That was some of the most hours I've put in on a system. 1, because Yankees fans scare me, and 2, because you know, there was a lot of names and honestly just was not as familiar with, or video was a little bit more limited. I had to dig deeper. That I think people, especially Yankees fans, but prospectors in general, will really enjoy doing the dig on. And then look out for an interview with Mark Vientos coming up at some point this week on the call up. Mets prospect, a really talented bat that I think could play a part in on their bench this year as kind of a lefty masher for them. So excited to talk to Mark, and always been a big fan of his offensively as a prospect for a while.
Call the kid Frank Sinatra. New York, baby. Hey, Roderick Arias, remember the name. Aram Layton's number 1 Yankee prospect, Roderick Arias.
I know you'll hear more on him about where I stand, but I do think he could be really special. So a lot of high upside talent in that farm system. Look out for Kiner Delgado as well. Sign up for Prize Picks.
Yes.
Please use the link in the description. There's some really fun long-term props there that I think are going to get easy pickings for the regular season. I know Peter's been giving out some of his that you can kind of just put some money down, gives you something to look out for as the season goes on. Use our link, use the code JustBaseball for a full deposit match. If you leave a rating, help us grow the podcast, that would be awesome. Really appreciate that. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. We're heading towards 8,000 subscribers on YouTube. Very pumped about that. Should have some really fun interviews coming up and a lot more top 10s, more WBC previews. But if you can't wait for that, we're publishing articles on the site every single day, previewing stuff for the World Baseball Classic. Yankees Farm Systems Live, a little bit more coming up. And we're a couple weeks out from the top 100 list for just baseball as well. So that's all I got, Jet.
Yeah, all that's left is you saying, and with that,
thanks, everybody.